What's up everybody? Over the past few days you may have come across this LinkedIn post or seen videos of it from other creators who talk about the games industry such as Vara Dark, Sungrant Studios, Dr. Disaster, Smash JT, etc. I first came across this post on X through Pirate Nation. My interpretation of it when I read it was vastly different than that of other content creators talking about it. Their interpretation of the post seemed to be more along the lines of it being an enforcement to us to buy that game, to pre-order it, to ideally to even get the deluxe edition, as that is the way to support a game and the studio. Sort of like making a demand of us. But my interpretation when I read it at the time was different. It looked more to me like someone kind of elbowing the modern audience, for lack of a better word, almost like a slight on them for being the target audience for a game like this, for being online chit-chatting about the game and how they might get it, but still not going through with it and actually buying it to support it, which then left the game to hit a peak concurrent player number of 1990 on Steam, not even making it to 2000, which is obviously a very bad thing for Dontnod, a studio that is in financial trouble, that has been losing loads of its market capital over the last 5 years. And I couldn't agree more with that assessment. It sounds like a jab on them rather than on us. That was my takeaway from it, but of course I could be wrong. It's not easy to derive tone from text, but one way or another, I thought that this would be a great topic to make a video about, touching on the elusive modern audience, the concept of making games for them, my own personal gripes with Lost Records as a game from a studio that I genuinely like, and a few other things. I was going to make a video on this earlier when I initially saw the post, but I wanted to learn more about the game itself first and the content in it before talking about it, because it's a bit relevant. So, sorry for the delay, now let's get in there. Let's start by quickly going through the relevant points of the post. On consumer responsibility, the penny still hasn't dropped for many consumers. I was browsing reaction to the Lost Records reviews this morning and I couldn't believe what I was reading. The reviews aren't that great. I'll wait for episode 2. I was interested but I'm going to pass. These sentiments coming from self-selecting consumers who are presumably interested in its themes and would claim to be supportive of its developer, but who are still withholding commitment. To reiterate, as a consumer, these are the ways that you support a product. Number 1, buy it at full price, ideally pre-ordering and ideally buying the deluxe version. Number 2, play it. Number 3, get other people to buy and play it. Anything else pales in significance to these 3 things. You have to support what you want to see. This is particularly true if you are advocating for niche or varied type of releases. What you say or post does not matter. What you do and especially what you spend does. If you want to see more of a certain type of game or theme or protagonist, you cannot afford to fence it. You must buy. Okay, so actually now reading it out loud for the video, I do notice a bit of a bitchy attitude with this. As a customer, I don't like to be lectured basically, and this feels like a lecture telling me that what I say doesn't matter, only what I spend does. And obviously I also don't agree at all with the sentiment of having to pre-order it or to pre-order deluxe editions. Most deluxe editions are total scams and people should not buy them at all. But at the same time, it does sound extremely realistic, and the post does specify that this is in regards to what people want to see. And if this is the case, then yeah, it is true. If someone makes a game that you really like the concept of, and the game is good and you're into it and you really want to support it, then you do have to buy it. This is the way that the industry works. If you don't support what you want to see, then what the hell are you doing? And of course there are also some nuances, for example, some games are pretty good at a lower price, but at launch at $70 or $60, they're not worth it. And there can even be cases of games being really good, but they launch broken and so they are not worth the price at launch. They need to be fixed first before actually being worth the asking price. But this is neither here nor there. It's not to say that posting about it doesn't matter either. After all, it's all publicity, and for a while in the last decade and even up to not even that long ago, I was pretty broke pretty often. Sometimes even now I still feel pretty broke when it comes to buying certain video games. After all, video games are a leisure item, and sometimes a curveball can really throw you off in terms of your bills. Maybe your car broke down, maybe you gotta go to the doctor because you got something that doesn't go away, maybe some home appliances broke down, maybe a pipe burst in your apartment apartment, you know, this, that and the other. Normal, everyday person type of nonsense that immediately makes you tighten up a little bit when it comes to money and not spend it on certain things that are not necessary. So sometimes a game would release and I personally didn't have money to buy it, so I recommended it to my friends and other people on gaming groups. I actually remember very vividly doing this for Ghosts of a Tale. It was a game I had been following the progress of very closely. When it released, I just didn't have the freedom to buy it, so I recommended it and bought it myself later when I finally felt like I could afford it responsibly. And I do remember at least 2 friends of mine getting the game, so hey, it's not much, but it's something. But of course, at the end of the day, my personal financial situation and what I did with Ghost of a Tale doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. It's just an anecdotal sort of thing. The message still stands. If you want a game to succeed, truly, if you want a developer to keep doing what they're doing, then you do need to buy it. And this is the major problem with the so-called modern audience. The modern audience is this elusive group of people that so many studios have gone downhill trying to appeal to, particularly in the big budget AAA space where it is absolutely nuts to even try to do so. Big budget games require big audiences because they need big sales, not only to pay for the cost of making these games, but also to get a nice little profit on top. And the notable thing that's been going on for the past few years is companies treating their customers like shit, openly hating on them in some cases, and in others disregarding them, their criticism, their opinions, and their requests. This is a multi-layered process that even involves games journalists shooting out articles demonizing us and defending the multi-billion-dollar companies and their games, even when their actions are indefensible or even when their games are straight up bad. This has generated this major dissonance, disconnect, distrust, and even animosity between gamers, or in other words, the paying customer, and the industry itself, meaning not just the studios and publishers, but also the media. For a more in-depth look into all of this, please check out this video on the matter. I promise you will not regret it. I made it back in December and it obviously didn't do so well. Link will be in the top comment and the description. So obviously this whole thing has been very bad for business. I don't know if the original idea when all of this started was to replace these games and various franchises, original audiences with a new, better, kinder, and more supposedly progressive and diverse audience, or if it was something else, but honestly it doesn't really matter in the end. What matters is that it failed horribly, because the modern audience is incredibly tiny, so tiny that it is completely insignificant when it comes to the AAA space, and honestly even the AA space. After all, many of the AA space's customers are the same as in the AAA space. It's just that people have to lower their standards a little bit and be a little bit more tolerant of games that don't have graphics or animations that are as detailed as what we see in some big budget games. It's not that the modern audience doesn't exist entirely, you know, they do. It's just that if you're looking to make games with overt signaling and themes that are meant to appeal to them, you need to be smart and make sure that you're budgeting your games in accordance with the kind of audience that you are targeting. This is why this crashes and burns in the AAA space. There's just nowhere near enough people to make these games successful. But in order to do this, you also need to understand something very important in regards to the modern audience. And that is that they're talkers.
You're a talker. Listening to talkers makes me thirsty.
They are very big talkers. When it comes to making their pointless ass views and virtue signaling heard, no one beats this particular group of people. And I think that this is why so many people are baffled at the flops that we've been seeing. After all, these people have not only employed and fostered an environment that caters to them in their studios, but they've also gone online and seen so many of them waving their little flags and symbols in their bios, spamming their hashtags, being super quick to swarm anyone's post that dared to think or speak differently to whatever established modern progressive view that they are staunchly defending. They've seen them come out in droves, love reacting to diverse castings after diverse castings for Disney remakes, superhero reimaginings, TV shows, even random smaller stuff like disabled and non-binary operators in shooters, etc, etc, etc. You guys get my point. We've all been seeing what's been happening over the past few years. And even now, to this day, they can still make themselves be more than seen online and heard whenever discussions erupt in regards to characters in video games looking a certain way way. Hell, you guys can do this quick and harmless experiment at home right now. Just grab a few screenshots of female characters from Western games, and then grab a few screenshots of female characters from Eastern games, put them all side by side, and then post it with a caption like, "What happened?" Make sure to post it in several gaming groups or pages on Facebook, for example. For X, it's pointless if you don't have a big following, but what you can do is you can keep an eye on users like Pirate Nation, who sometimes post these kinds of posts, and go look at the comments. You will guaranteed get yourself comments talking shit about you as if you just committed a crime against humanity, or just baseless insults that refuse to acknowledge reality. Hell, you might even get yourself banned from some of those gaming pages and groups for wrongthing. You can even expedite all of this by doing it on Reddit. Just grab a screenshot of Tosh from Dragon Age Veilguard, grab a screenshot from literally any character from the First Ascendant. You can even get a dude character from First Ascendant, put them both side by side, post it on the Dragon Age Veilguard subreddit, and you will be banned before 3 o'clock. You don't even need to caption it over there. They will infer whatever the fuck they need to infer to get you out of that group. So in the end, how come there's so many people around being the first to find posts with opposing opinions to shit on, or carrying on with their embarrassing out-of-touch crusades trying to cancel or demonize things that they don't like Black Myth Wukong last year, for example, for reasons that the media completely made up, by the way. But then when a game like Dustborn comes out, it flops. When a game like Veilguard comes out, arguably the patron saint of modern progressive identity politics, acceptance and tolerance, it flops. And when a game like Lost Records comes out, a game that should actually be way easier to support, first and foremost because it's cheaper, it's like 30 or 40 bucks to buy this game, but also because it comes from the creators of Life is Strange, a studio that's actually been known for respectfully writing and presenting characters with some LGBTQ+ elements, and also weaving delicate social issues into the narratives of their games very successfully. Why aren't they buying it? Why are these people like this? I don't get it. How do they spend every waking moment on various social media yapping about shit and watching retarded political streamers all day, liking and retweeting whenever a studio or publisher virtue signals to them or puts up little flags and shit that they support, but when they put out a game, they just vanish. They just poof, like smoke. Sorry for ranting. Let me reorganize myself here and bring it back down. The thing to understand about the modern audience is that they're not gamers. They're not paying customers. They might game sometimes, but they clearly don't give a fuck about the medium. All they want to do is to see these studios and companies toe the line and comply with their worldview. They want to see these studios and companies support the same sort of ideology that they do. They want to see them all go out during Pride Month with the flags. They want to see them all celebrating Black History Month and Women's History Month, all the months. They want to see them do all of this stuff, virtue signaling for all of these minorities and all of these groups, taking their sides in any big world issues happening in the moment, etc. All of this posturing stuff. And of course you better believe that they'll be right there to make noise if these companies don't do that sort of thing, or worse yet, if these companies employ people that openly support different political views or parties, even if it's not a developer, like it could just be an actor. Everyone knows and remembers what happened with Gina Carano in Star Wars, for example. She didn't toe the line, and so they made a bunch of noise to get her fired from her job and cancelled. And it actually worked. Something similar also happened with Baldur's Gate 3. There was an actor named Fraser Blaxland, and he got hounded by the community for being a bigot, apparently because he liked posts that were considered absolutely, incontrovertibly condemnable, such as being against biological males in female sports and female spaces. I mean, imagine that. And following bigots such as Joe Rogan. As well as Riley Gaines and some Israeli people. Someone even went out of their way to compile a fuck ton of his likes and follows to show this and to serve as a tool to get his ass cancelled. Now, while to my knowledge he didn't get cancelled from the game, his character is still there and voiced by him as far as I know, it did end up however damaging him without a doubt, especially as some other people from the game itself spoke out against him, like the actor for Astarion. We are proud supporters of the LGBTQIA IA community. This is a safe space for everybody. We are also very much against the genocide that's happening in Palestine. We're anti-fascist, anti-racist, anti-homophobe, and we will always be so. We are upset about what's happened with Blaxland, and we just want to make sure that people are aware that we are completely against any of that kind of behavior. And it has affected us both. It's affected us a lot. The most important thing to us is that people feel safe. What do you mean feel safe? Are there any bears on the loose or something? Is Fraser Blaxland going to pop out of the fucking screen and come after someone with an axe? What is this? Man, I swear, dude, this is so out of touch with reality. I totally understand the making of this statement. The statement itself doesn't have necessarily anything wrong. What's wrong is the context. It's so annoying. It's this attitude of pretending like it's the end of the world. Pretending like Fraser Blaxland did something terrible and completely just condemnable, something that just cannot be conceived by anyone, like something so evil, so terrible, that it must be spoken against with such strength. It's this complete neglect of common sense and this push for rampant exaggeration. It implies that he is all of these terrible things, and therefore, so is everyone who agrees with those statements, or rather, the posts, the memes, and the people that Fraser Blaxland liked and followed. And the majority of it is just common sense, like not even far-right stuff, it's just like centrist stuff. Not to get into this stuff too much, but the Israel and Hamas situation, for example, it's not a black and white situation. Just because someone follows, knows, or works with Israeli people, or condemns Hamas for being a terror organization, does not mean that they are a bigot, or who approve of the way that Israel has handled the war so far. And that goes double for the female sports stuff. I mean, who the fuck are we kidding here? You ask anyone out there about this stuff, and the vast majority of the planet, and it's not just the vast, it's the overwhelmingly vast majority of the planet. They're going to be like, duh, of course not. Women's sports should be for women only. Biological males will naturally have an unfair advantage, and in some more physical sports, it can even be extremely dangerous for the women. That's why there's two separate categories, to make sure that women have their own spotlight in various sports where men would naturally dominate simply because of having developed male bodies. But good fucking luck trying to reason with people like this. You'll have better luck trying to get blood from a stone. And don't get me wrong, other people do this too. I mean, if you even look through my videos, for example, you will see me expressing a concern with Ghosts of Yotai's decision for casting Erika Ishii as the protagonist of the game instead of continuing on with Jin Sakai. I expressed concern and brought up her posts, but it wasn't because I wanted her cancelled because of having her own views. I could care less about that. Ideally, this kind of thing would never matter, just like it didn't matter for years and years and years. As long as people can just do their job, then that's what matters. It doesn't matter what their gender is, what race they are, what sexuality, what they eat, who they bang, who they vote for, etc. As long as they can leave all of that at the door and just do a good job, that's all that matters. This even came up again recently. People were praising Monster Hunter Wilds for being a great game, and someone whose name I forgot, I don't even know if I'll be able to find the post, but I'll try to when I'm editing the video. They just started going off about how hypocritical it was that we were enjoying a game that was worked on by a non-binary voice actor. And it's like, duh, no shit. None of this really matters so long as people keep their political or ideological agendas out of the games themselves and just make them good. If the game is about hunting monsters in some fantasy land, then that's it. You don't need to have modern, contemporary nonsense from our world put into it. That's why people like this game. That's why people don't care if you're a voice actor who's non-binary. My concern with Yotai was with the decision itself falling into the same kind of pattern of behavior that other companies have been showing and ending up making incredibly stupid decisions with the games or shows or movies that they are making, ending up with complete flops. Garbage like The Acolyte, the latest season of Doctor Who, She-Hulk, The Marvels, Dustborn, Concord, Dragon Age Veilguard, who actually had a main character voiced by Erika Ishii as well. This is why I brought it up. It's the kind of nonsense that loves to go, hey, don't like it, don't buy it. Even Sean Layden himself said that. And that random fans were just expressing concern in regards to the game not featuring Jin Sakai anymore. I didn't bring it up to cancel her because of her views. I didn't start a Twitter hashtag over it. It was merely because lately companies have been going gung-ho and expressing radical views or turning on their fans online, as we've seen from several developers or community managers from Obsidian, BioWare, The Initiative, CD Projekt Red, Compulsion Games, Godot, Wrong Organ, etc. Fuck, some of them are even freelance or retired now and they're still talking shit. So going back to the main thing, these are people who want to see these companies toe the line in regards to shit like this. They'll pop up on social media and shower a company with hearts and hashtags anytime that they're representing their views, pandering and catering to things that they find approvable merely from a political or ideological standpoint. Doesn't matter if the game is good, doesn't matter if the game is caked with microtransactions, doesn't matter, none of this matters. Only one thing matters, the ideology and the politics. And they're going to be the first to group up and talk shit about any company or product that slipped up or that has an actor who isn't even being radical and waving flags on protests or saying batshit insane stuff like defund the police, such as Erika Ishii did, but who merely dared to follow Joe Rogan.
We put like a monetary value on actual life itself. Wow, it's just such a strange concept.
Yeah.
Did you see that guy accidentally hit that moose with his car?
No.
Holy shit, Jamie, pull that video.
Or have a more nuanced opinion on current events, or the big one, be one of the many who voted for Donald Trump. But when it comes to buying and playing a fucking video game, when it comes to practicing what they preach, when it comes to finally rewarding the companies that have been sacrificing their successes and longevity by catering and pandering to these people, they are fucking gone, brother. They're not here. They went far away. You're on your own. So honestly, I think it's more than time for these industry higher-ups to acknowledge this trend that has been going on for years now and stop continuing to pander and cater to people who are simply not interested in their products. Why are you, as someone who makes a product, breaking your back bending over backwards to please people who have no interest whatsoever in your product, regardless of if you pander to them or not? It's just stupid. It's a stupid business decision, and I hope that the industry at large wakes up. You can still tell the stories that you want to tell, you can still make the games that you want to make, but you need to take your audience into account, and you also need to drop the ideological influence. That's the key thing that is capable of derailing a project, of turning a Baldur's Gate 3 into a Dragon Age Veilguard, for example. And this isn't directly adding Don't Nod either, like this is a general message for every studio and publisher out there. Stop going out of your way to please people who don't buy games to begin with. Their likes and retweets aren't going to do anything for you. And that's mostly it from this chapter in the video. I know it was long, but hey, it's out of the way now. It's pointless to speak directly to the modern audience itself, as that LinkedIn post was trying to do. They don't give a shit. Again, the idea of the modern audience in entertainment, be it in movies, shows, or games, is confounded by what they seem to look like online on social media. They seem like a huge market that is easily broken into. Basically just parrot the bullshit that they're spewing on their accounts, inject it into shows, movies, or games, and voila, it's done. You don't even need to know how to write a good story, you don't even need complex characters, you don't need to hassle yourself with getting a good and creative director. Who cares about how his shots look? Who cares about cinematography? Who cares about themes? You don't need a composer who needs to spend too much time on the music and all of this other stuff. You don't need to care about any of this shit, nor do you even need to care about gameplay. All you gotta do is pander to their political and ideological beliefs, and in theory, the money should be rolling in. Sounds really good, doesn't it? Hell, it even comes with other bonuses. If anybody even tries to criticize your game, there will be an army of game journalists and access media shills, hell, maybe even an actor or two, making articles and statements that all of this criticism is just hatred and bigotry, ensuring then that your game was actually a massive success, and the only reason it failed was because of hate campaigns on the internet, you know, stuff that you have absolutely no control over. whatsoever. Could have happened to anyone, no matter how good the game is. Doesn't it all sound just wonderful? It really does, but in reality, that's not what it is at all. In reality, these people may as well be bots on the internet. They're not buying games, they're not playing them, they're not talking about them or even recommending them to their friends. The only thing that they'll ever acknowledge is if their BS is represented in it. They're not heading out there and watching a movie or a show. They don't care about entertainment. Their fucking entertainment is to be terminally online, and that's why this doesn't work. Meanwhile, the real audiences, the people who buy video games, they're just normal fucking people. Like, they're not even the complete radical opposite of these people ideologically. They're not racists or bigots, they're not the alt-right. They're just normal people who don't give half of a shit about any of this garbage that they're pushing and virtue signaling about every day in every corner of the internet and entertainment. They just want a good piece of entertainment to watch or to play, and instead they're being given slop with lame storylines because, again, instead of focusing on writing something good or developing something creative and fun, studios are busy trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator. Then the product is garbage and the audience is not interested. Hell, some of the very members of this audience are people who are gay or trans or people of color, the people that these extremists, this modern audience, claims to be virtue signaling and fighting for. They don't want this slop either. Again, the market for entertainment is huge. This stuff isn't just not working in America, it's not working in South America, it's not working in Europe, it's not working in Australia, it's not working in Asia, it's not working in Africa, it's not working anywhere. So, God, man, I know I'm still a small channel. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am near 11,000 subscribers and I can barely believe that I've made it this far, but I'm obviously still a shrimp in the grand scheme of things. But if I may be so bold as to hope that some industry people ever see this, please wake up. Making posts like that trying to educate people who don't care about gaming on how to support video game studios means nothing. They're not listening. They're not here to buy video games. They're just here to preach to everyone else on what games are appropriate and what games are not appropriate and should go bankrupt based on politics and other crap that they have bullshitted themselves into believing that everyone else should care about as much as they do, and in the exact way that they do. And man, obviously, that's not working, and it's never going to. Now more directly in regards to Lost Records. This game is actually not something that was only directed at the modern audience, not at all. In fact, as someone who actually enjoyed both Life is Strange 1 and 2 way back in 2015 and 2018 when they came out, I was actually looking forward to Dontnod's return to this genre and style of game. Long story short, the Life is Strange franchise was basically hijacked by Square Enix, for lack of a better word. In fact, actually, hijacking is completely wrong, to be fair. I mean, the franchise itself, the IP, belongs fully to Square Enix. They were the publisher and of course they owned the license, but it was obvious that Square Enix and Dontnod had creative differences. When the first game was a massive success, raking in a load of money, Square Enix wanted to milk it for all that it had, whereas Dontnod often spoke in interviews that the story of Life is Strange had a solid ending and they were not interested in doing sequels or prequels, and that they wanted to kind of respect the characters and end the story where it was, and that any future Life is Strange games, such as Life is Strange 2, would feature new characters in new places, with new problems, new mysteries, and new powers, which I understood and respected fully. Bringing back the same characters in realistic settings can run the risk of turning them into cartoons, constantly running into new troubles and new threats. But Square Enix was not happy with this, so they got themselves a new studio, which at the time was named Idle Minds. They were barely a studio, honestly. They were making random ports and games that nobody had ever heard about for PlayStation Portable and other shit like that. Square Enix acquired them and rebranded them to Deck 9, and then got them cranking out Life is Strange games regardless of quality, bringing back fan-favorite characters from the original game for fan service. This was a huge turnoff for a bunch of fans and caused a bit of a divide in the community, because some of us weren't interested in the Life is Strange franchise because of shipping lesbians. Some of us were into it because of the mysteries, the the supernatural aspects and complex characters, complex situations, and dramatic events. I never bothered to buy another Life is Strange game again. Through a PlayStation Plus Extra subscription, I tried out Before the Storm, the fan service prequel, and I couldn't even continue it after 2 hours or so. And then I also forced myself through True Colors, which resulted in a monumental rant. At this time, I didn't really make videos for YouTube, but if I want to, I can probably still find the rant on some old chat records of mine. Something to consider for a future video, I suppose. So anyway, with all of this going on, Dontnod just kept moving on with their life, making other games, Vampire and Banishers being two of them, which I love. And then they announced Lost Records. They obviously didn't mention anything in regards to Life is Strange, but it was pretty obvious that this was their return to that, this time around without any publisher hovering over their heads to force them to do stuff that they don't want to do. So in that LinkedIn post, I actually related quite a bit to some of what was said, particularly the "I'll wait for episode 2" and the "I was interested but I'm going to pass." This is actually how I felt over time, but initially I was genuinely excited about this. If there's something you guys gotta understand about me in this channel is that I am a massive nerd when it comes to this industry. Like, I will play anything that is good. I am not a picky eater. I am the kind of guy who was playing a Souls-like on Monday and a game of this genre right here on Tuesday. I want solid, authentic experiences, and some of the most memorable games that I've played were kind of like this, such as Firewatch and Oxenfree from 2016. This doesn't mean, of course, that major experiences in AAA don't do it for me. They absolutely do. Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2, Deus Ex, Human Revolution, L.A. Noire, GTA 4, Max Payne 2 and 3, Witcher 3, Dead Space, Dying Light, Elden Ring, Bloodborne. I mean, Jesus, I could go on and on and on with memorable experiences that I will never forget. Cyberpunk, Skyrim, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Mass Effect, the Metro series, the original Final Fantasy VII, the first Yakuza game, Ninja Gaiden, etc. I will literally go on, and I will not shut up. And a lot of these are recent, like in the last 12 years or so, because when I was a kid, I missed out on a lot of the good stuff. And then a bit later after that, when I got a PC, I was just playing a lot of Counter-Strike, a lot of Call of Duty, a lot of Minecraft, and not much else. So there's a lot of old stuff that I haven't played yet and I would love to play, like KOTOR, for example. And yeah, I got a huge passion for a lot of games that I played over just the past 12-13 years. I'm just saying that despite me making the videos that I make, and mainly focusing on bigger budget games whenever I make these videos like the one on Avowed and Veilguard, I have dabbled and enjoyed indie games and smaller narrative-driven experiences like these, so Lost Records was genuinely something that I was initially very excited for, but then that excitement slowly started fading away, and it was mainly due to the marketing of the game. There was just not enough excitement. Most of the footage was just kids hanging out and bonding, and initially I thought that the marketing was just bad, you know, they just screwed up the marketing itself, but in reality the marketing was just accurate. What was really bad this time around was the pacing and the things that the game chose to focus on. I think the things that made Life is Strange so successful was a fantastic distribution between character development, letting the scenery and the setting and the character slowly settle in as we would explore smaller areas and interact with objects, and then the main plot involving the missing person's mystery and, of course, the special ingredient, the supernatural, namely, in Life is Strange, that being Max's time-altering powers. The pacing in the first game was great. It's not that we didn't still have cringy writing and stuff like that, of course we did. We also had a romance, we could pick an option for a boy or a girl, and most people chose the girl, of course. There was a lot of stereotypical college/high school type of cringe from teenagers, because of course they're teenagers after all, you know, they were like 18 and up, but you know, still in that age of sounding like jackasses sometimes. But at the same time, we were also getting a little additional scrap added to the story, you know what I mean? We were always 1 or 2 scenes away from getting another piece of information that the game doled out in regards to the disappearances, or in regards to Max's power, or in regards to some big drama going on as part of the story. And by drama, I mean real drama, not just teen drama. In Lost Records, the pacing is just fucked up. There's a mystery in there, but after like 8 hours of this in part 1, we barely see any of it besides a hole in the ground and the wasted potential that was annoying enough to make a person grin their teeth. There's also a mysterious box in the present timeline of the game that they stall on opening for the entire episode. Can you imagine? Can you imagine receiving a box addressed to you with a name that only you and your 3 friends would know about? A box with a name tied to a very bad thing that happened a long time ago, and instead of opening it, you spend the entire night talking, drinking, texting, and then playing pool. The main character of the game has a video camera that she is always recording it. At some point in the story, the girls get together and watch some of the footage that she had been recording, and it is revealed that there's a bit of additional footage that was recorded the night before, and that none of them remember recording it. They even had this heavy synth bass effect play, you know, the type of tense music that Stranger Things famously used, that synthwave type of thing. And at that moment, I got so excited. I was like, yes, finally, here we go, boys, we are so back. Except it led to nothing. Nothing happened. The gameplay sequence that follows this is the girls going out, hanging outside at night. They found an abandoned cabin. Then you go inside the cabin, find a way to open the door from the inside, letting all of your friends in, and then that becomes your cabin later in the game. They work on it, clean it up, fix it up, paint it, decorate it, etc. That bit of footage, it led to nothing, and it's never brought up again. And you have no idea how much this bothers me. Like, that was such an exciting premise. One of you is always recording, it's just what she does. At some point in the game, at some point in the story, all of them get together and they just innocently watch some footage. Suddenly, the lights go off, everything goes dark, and your camera starts playing back some footage that neither you nor your friends remembered recording. Some footage that is impossible to be in that camera. It was the perfect place to start ramping up the tension, to start putting in the element of mystery that this game deserved and honestly even kind of promised, because some of the teasers of the game, not the trailers, but some of the teasers did have some supernatural stuff in it. But then nothing happens, and we go back to a few more hours of nothing until we get another scene of some stupid little childish blood ritual in the woods. It's no big deal, it's whatever, but then later there's another eerie foggy night where one of the girls disappears and you go looking for her, and basically, to keep it short, all you find is a glowing hole in the ground. Sorry, by the way, I don't have any footage of any of this stuff. I could have gotten it, but honestly, it would be boring background footage roll anyway. If I ever dedicate a video to this game, I will do it properly, but for now, all that matters is that I am the target audience for this game, or at least I should have been. But the promotional material threw me off because all that I saw was a big emphasis on boring bonding between teenage girls and not enough material about the actual mystery, not enough, I don't know, something of substance. I even commented in their social media posts over the years that I hoped to see more of the mystery teased in the future. But we barely got any of it, and it is noticeable why. Because it's barely in the game, it's probably relegated to the second part of the game coming out in April. And hey, fair enough, maybe part 2 is going to be a banger. Maybe part 1 is all the boring bonding shit and part 2 is where all the good sauce is at. But this is in itself a terrible business plan because people aren't going to want to play this. As much as I wish that I could recommend this game, as much as I wish that I could stand here and be like, guys, please, I know this looks DEI as fuck, but trust your boy Des. This is a great game with a main focus on this mystery thing, sort of like early Stranger Things. Don't nod as totally delivered, blah 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 blah. If you're into different genres like this, sort of like Telltale Walking Dead, pick it up. But I can't do that, because 90% of this is frolicking in the woods as an immature teenage girl with other immature teenage girls, with 90% of the dialogue in that 90% of the game being filled with cringe. Cringe that, while accurate to the depiction of immature teenagers, needs to be balanced out with something happening, you know, with the plotting. You know what I mean? In the first Life is Strange game, we got cringy teenagers too, but we also got gun violence, murder, murders, kidnappings, dangerous drug dealers, existential threats to the fucking planet, a lot of adult trauma and PTSD, especially if you get stuck trying not to kill that drug dealer in one of the funniest sequences where you can keep going back in time to redo the encounter in a way that doesn't result in violence. Oh, and of course that reminds me, time traveling and crazy interdimensional bullshit. I mean, goddamn, at this point, you know how easy it is to sell this game? You know how easy it is to tune off from the cringe or at least dilute it and just make it be a part of the game? The same cannot be said with Lost Records, where most of the time nothing is happening, just kids being kids in the woods, with half of what they say just being things that my brain just tuned out of. Oh, I might move away. Oh no. Oh, hey, what should our band name be? Oh, hey, ooh, I never kissed a boy. Oh, me neither. Like, what the fuck is this? This somehow managed to take a player such as myself, someone who this game was supposed to be for, and get me to just not want to get it. And that's just sad, man. And it's all that I had to say in regards to this game. It's not just sad that this studio that has always delivered stories I genuinely loved, not just because of the story itself, but the way that it was told, the way that it was directed and paced, and the way that it didn't shy away from getting brutal with its reality, is now faltering and making this weak shit, pardon my French, no pun intended, but also because this studio's market capital has dropped 90% over the last 5 years. And here's the thing, if your studio is in a rough shape like this, then this is the last kind of game that you should be investing on. Like, it hurts to see this, and as a fan of Vampire especially, and Banishers and Remember Me, you know, their first game, it boggles my mind that despite being in decline for so long, they are still trying to make games that obviously appeal to a minority. And the thing is that I understand if the mentality was to try and capitalize off of the massive success that Life is Strange had, basically trying to create another great success like that first Life is Strange game had. It is unquestionable that if they did that, they would be fine right now. Their market capital would be rising. But the thing is that they also have to understand that it's been 10 years since that game came out. Back then it scored 18,000 concurrent players on Steam by the release of the final episode, and that's not counting the console sales. It was a lot back then, especially for such a small game with such a small budget. But while back then that idea was fresh and compelling, that simply isn't the case anymore. Now it's actually overdone. It's in fact so overdone that even the AAA industry is trying to do it. It's just that they're doing it in different genres, like trying to shove the same type of themes and imagery and character design ideas and, you know, that kind of thing into action adventures and RPGs, you know, making them diverse and inclusive. So that demand that was there 10 years ago is totally gone now. And of course the cultural shift is definitely somewhat important to take into account here as well. I mean, you know, no shit. I mean, 10 years ago this game wouldn't be having the problems that it's having today, and it surely wouldn't have X accounts like Pirate Nation and Grums talking shit about the game despite not even playing it, merely because they saw 4 girls in the color purple, which, I mean, hey, fair enough. If it looks like a duck and it comes from a studio that has in the past cultivated ducks, then yeah, sure, it's probably a duck. But the point remains that 5 to 10 years ago they wouldn't be having these many issues because the industry wasn't so screwed up by the culture war. However, the people that aren't buying this game now, because of that reason, would not be buying this game 5 to 10 years ago anyway. They would not be buying a game like Life is Strange. Know what I mean? If this isn't your kind of game now, it wouldn't have been your kind of game even without the culture war aspect attached to it. So in theory, this should not have affected the game's sales at all. All the people who like this type of game don't care about what Grums or Pirate Nation or Vara Dark or Jarell from Sungrand or Dr. Disaster, or even I for that matter, have to say in regards to this game. In fact, because of this culture war, they should have been feeling more invigorated to supporting a game like this, just like we were last year to support Black Myth Wukong and Stellar Blade. Unless, of course, they're talkers, which is seemingly the situation because they're not showing up for it. And I honestly think that 5 to 10 years ago this game would be having a hard time anyway, and that is straight up because of the way that it is structured and paced. I am still hoping that this mystery comes in with a huge reveal and a massive appeal in part 2, something worthy of those tense music notes that played. Hell, something worthy of the Don't Nod name. But yeah, I'm worried, and as it stands there's just no motivator whatsoever. It's not that they didn't nail some of their other qualities. For example, the music is amazing, the visuals are beautiful, the environments are rich with detail, and they do try pretty hard with the emotional stuff, but without the balance and with the focus on 15 and 16-year-old shit, I struggle to wonder who exactly is this game for in the end. Beyond the fact that the demand for this kind of setting and theme and etc. is already not the same that it was 10 years ago, it's also worth noting that neither are Don't Nods fans. The people who were in their teens and in their early 20s at the time of Life is Strange 1 have grown up. We are well into our 20s and 30s now, so maybe it's not the greatest idea to turn away from mature themes. And the episodic aspect may have been a mistake too, again, because perhaps if this was a full release, maybe it could have been paced better, assuming that there was an actually good mystery plan here. But that maybe got pushed away to part 2 because of perhaps laying the plan out in a way of like, oh, I know, let's introduce our girls in the first episode, let's cuck our players with a mysterious box that nobody opens, and merely teasing something while leaving the big reveals for the second part 2 months later. I obviously have no idea if this was the plan, but if it was, bitch, nobody's gonna be around for part 2 like this. You gotta grab your players by the nuts in the first one, or you know, the ovaries or whatever. Respectfully, of course. But anyway, that's it from me on this one, guys. Probably not gonna be too popular. I know that most of my audience is very likely not into narrative-driven sort of games like these. If you are though, let me know some of your favorites. Personally, I love the Season 1 of The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us from Telltale. You just cannot go wrong with either of those gems. And yeah, the video is also definitely not going to be popular if it reaches the studio. This is one that I really didn't want to make. I do genuinely like the studio. I've interacted with some of the people from it before. They are genuinely nice, wonderful people, but what has to be said has to be said. But either way, I thank you for watching. Please like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and take care of yourselves. I'll see you guys on the next one.